invited one of the business owners that I work with on the HR consulting side of my business. Kyle and I have worked together for over a year now. When Kyle first reached out to me over a year ago, I quickly realized that he was knee deep or maybe shoulder deep in all the people side of the business as the business owner. And we were able to work together to help him lead through his people by putting processes and systems in place. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Kyle on to tell you about his story of elevating the people side of the business. I am so excited for my audience to hear about the great work you're doing at your company.
So my father, Joel Yoder, he grew up in rural northern Michigan, and there was very limited opportunities. They grew up really near poverty, and one of the best opportunities in Michigan is to get into manufacturing work. That's what he did, and actually started working for some companies, move up in them, ended up getting into maintenance, tooling, heading up their engineering department where they started designing tooling. And then in the 90s, him and my uncle decided that they should start their own company building tooling, because there seemed to be such a growing demand for it. Machines that would be used in manufacturing for some of the companies that he previously had worked for. In the early 2000s, a customer that would buy these tools from him asked him, Joel, you know these tools better than anyone. You know how these parts are built better than anyone. Our employees really struggle with making them using your tools, and we don't believe it's because of your tools, because you do great work. Why are you not a manufacturer? Why don't you just build these parts and sell them? And so, 2003, he started Metal Fab Manufacturing. It's a very common product, but it's probably not something a lot of people think about. And so we do different types of automotive tubing, and we have made millions and millions of tubes for essentially all the major automotive companies in the world at this point. We're a small company, 30, 40 employees right now.
Your company and the work that your people do. I've had the privilege of going to your company a few times, and when you say rural, it's rural, very small town in a very small county in northern Michigan. One of the things I've been most impressed with is just how well your employees, just how well they work together and how much they really care about the process that they're doing. Tell me what prompted you to reach out to me in the first place.
So, as my dad started the company and it grew, I got involved in later years and just kind of continued to take on a bigger and bigger role within the company. And during that time, we went from 3 people when we first started.
Oh, wow.
We had three employees, and we at one point were up to about 80 employees when we were at our largest. I was working with a consultant, as general manager, working through a lot of day-to-day things and talking with him about some of the challenges that I was facing. And he stopped me during that conversation and he said, Kyle, do you have any clue how much HR you're doing? And I said, you know what? I never really thought about it that way, but I see your point. And he says, you know that there's professionals that can help you with that, right? And it was kind of like a light bulb moment. I was like, it makes sense. I actually do know there's professionals out there. I just never thought about how that could be helpful to Metal Fab. We had some good advice. I reached out to somebody else that gave me a tip to say that I should contact Mindy East, and reached out.
Networking played its way out there because, it was like you asked somebody who knew somebody who knew me. So it was a great lead for sure. Last January, when I started working with you, I conducted an HR audit, which is really the first thing I like to do when I start working with a company, so I can fully understand what is going on now. Not in a judging way, but more in a understanding what systems, processes, and things we have going on, and then prioritizing the things that we could work on. What were some of the key findings that, if you recall, that came out as a result of your audit?
we had a handbook and we had a policy, but it meant a lot to have somebody that was a professional that could go through it and help us. And I would say one of the biggest things after you did the review and you made some suggestions of some projects to take on. I mean, it was reassuring that you recognized what we were trying to do, that we had a good culture, and that we really wanted to know the best ways to approach things. And so your first recommendations and some of the first things we did, looking at how to move more to a strengths-based approach and being proactive in the realm of HR. I think so many times I had the perception, maybe others had the perception, that HR is just kind of like keep you out of trouble, get you out of trouble kind of thing. And it's all important, to have that, but then to look at it proactively and positively in the realm of saying, hey, your people are really important to you. I don't think any business owner would disagree with that, and I've said many times that there's many other companies that can buy a building and buy the tools and buy the same material as Metal Fab. It's really our people that make us who we are as a company, that makes us stand out. And so I would say that was one of the first things that really came out from that, was how much of an investment this was in our people and how valuable that would be to our company.
Yes, you had a good starting point in that you had a lot of really strong company values and a lot of very loyal employees who'd been there for many, many years. It was more about putting some systems and processes in place to make it proactive, less reactive, and have some more strategy to the people side of the business, for sure. So you mentioned one of the first things we worked on was making it a strengths-based culture. And I am a Gallup certified strengths coach. So walk me through what that has looked like for your company.
It's still something that we routinely talk about, even just from one of the first things that we did, the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And again, is just a great example of how to be proactive in that area. So I know you had Heidi, who's also joined us and started to really become an important person to us as she's taken on a lot of the HR responsibilities and worked with you. And then I get my strengths assessment, and I'm 100% strategic thinking. Like that's my whole world. And my top 7 are strategic thinking. And then Heidi, who has, way more in the realm of relational elements and things that are really important to her. And it was things that we knew about each other, but using the strength assessment made it really clear why we were very different and yet just really important to work together. But it added a lot of clarity for me to understand how Heidi operated, understand why she was an important part of the team, and then likewise for her to understand me. It started a lot of great conversations. People were very interested in it. And then we had more of our employees take the strengths-based thing, and it had a lot of very good, encouraging conversations from it.
Once we conducted the strength survey for your leadership team, I was able to put them on a grid for you and facilitate some discussions. And the thing that stood out to me was that your team really likes processes and structure as a whole, not like an individual person. Like it was a reoccurring theme across your team. It was interesting that then we spent the rest of the year putting in structure and processes to the people side of the business. I want to just talk about a few of the things that we put into place, and then I want to ask you about the effect that's had on your team. So after we worked on strengths, I think one of the next things we worked on right away was to outline the hiring processes and selection process for recruiting and hiring new people for your team. Walk me through that. I'd love to hear you tell me what it was like before and then what it's like now.
As the leader for this really exceptional group of people that I think are really well suited to be in manufacturing, when I saw that report to say, hey, this is a group of people that really value consistency and processes, it hit me. I'm strategic thinking. I love change. I want to be thinking about not what I'm going to do today and this week. I want to be thinking out ahead. I want to be having visions of how things could always be improved. I realize why it's so important for me to understand my team, because they like consistency. So for me to say, hold up, as I'm thinking about changes and advancements and stuff we want to have as a company, how do I solidify something consistent that's more of a system my team's going to operate better in? And so you used the example of the hiring process, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always been somebody that enjoys working with people and likes to resolve conflict or be in difficult
Mm-hmm.
situations. And I routinely was the person that would always gravitate towards those conversations. I was doing all of the interviews, 100% of interviews. Pretty much, if you were going to get hired at Metal Fab, you were likely going to have an interview with Kyle Yoder. I thought that seemed pretty normal at the
Mm.
time, but
Yeah.
it was, especially if we had to go through a lot of hiring, it was a lot of work for me. I was okay with that. But
Mm-hmm.
my team preferring more of a consistent environment and a structure to it, I don't think it was something as they were as eager to be a part of. So we worked with you and we created a much clearer way of setting up both our expectations of who we're looking to hire, what are we looking for, who are we trying to connect with, and then creating a really good system of how to evaluate that person. And I really appreciated that because I realized in your kind of cookie cutter interview questions of like, do you get along with people?
Yeah.
Who's going to say no? I mean,
Everyone's
everyone
gonna
will
say
say
yes,
yes.
right?
Using a competency based thing that's gonna really ask for some experience. A question that you would provide as we went through that was more like, tell us about a time that you experienced conflict on a team and how you were
Mm-hmm.
able to help resolve that. And it really makes them dig into, how am I going to actually demonstrate this more than just say, yeah, of course, I would not want
Yes,
there to
I
be
always
conflict.
resolve.
We created some clear guidelines and a structure of how to do interviews. And so the benefits of that is, one, we started to just be more effective at hiring, and just feeling confident that we had thoroughly vetted candidates and then
Mm-hmm.
really got to know them again versus just asking them yes or no questions and not truly getting an understanding of their background and capabilities. Great things on my side of it was that we started to create interview teams, and that with the new structure, we had people that previously would have not been comfortable doing interviews would come to me and say, Kyle, if there's any more interviews to do, I would love to be on every hiring team.
That's
And to the
awesome.
effect where once I had the confidence of how this worked, I don't need to be on these hiring teams. You
Yeah.
you guys know what you're looking for, and you know how to run the system of this. And so now I really don't do that many interviews anymore.
Yeah, that's so great for so many reasons. One, because it frees you up as the leader of the organization to do more high level strategic things. It empowers your team when they can be part of hiring decisions. And then it also develops them. It's just one more tool in their leadership toolbox that they can say that they've hired and interviewed people. It's just a way to develop them too. So, something that we had put into place early, just with really positive results. And I'm thrilled that you have continued to hire people that you're more confident in the decision than possibly before. And how's that played out for internal hires? Have they gone through the process as well?
Yeah, it's actually been great for our internal hires. That's, again, there's been multiple benefits. That one is also there on the top of the list of things that I was really happy to see. And by having a more defined system of how you move up and the interview process, one of the things that has become apparent through having this system is that people really believe in it. They believe
Mm,
that it's fair, and they
mm,
also recognize that it's rigorous. Like,
yeah,
it's not, when they come out of the interviews, it's not like, well, I sure hope they like me enough to promote me. They're
yeah,
thinking about like, oh man, those are tough questions. Like, I hope I answered those well enough. There hasn't been a feeling of questioning the process. They're like, no, that
hmm,
was truly a process to find the best candidate. I mean, one of the interesting things that's happened that we've encouraged people to do is, even if they don't feel like they might be the most qualified candidate internally,
hmm, hmm.
because we run a consistent system of how you're going to interview and how you're going to get promoted, we've had more people internally that have volunteered to go through the process just to get the experience.
It's so good for their own development too, because they're not going to get interview practice unless they leave the company. So to provide for you guys to be willing to encourage them to join the process and to put their name in the hat gives them that interviewing experience that will just prepare them. It's just another way that they're getting the opportunity to stretch and to grow for sure. So Kyle, you've already told me about a few significant changes that you made to elevate the people side of the business. Are there others that stuck out for you as things that have made a big impact in your organization?
providing opportunity and clarity to people of how the roles work, how compensation works. And so
Mm.
that was a big one that we just kind of completed our work on, and one that I was a little skeptical of at first. I know you had mentioned the idea. We certainly needed a clearer method of how we did compensation at Metal Fab.
Yes.
One of those areas that we kind of brought people in, we sort of gave them a title that we thought maybe fit. Well, you're in the office, so you must be a manager.
Yeah.
Um, and helping to refine, hey, what is it that people do? What should their title be? And then how do we look at those roles, look at those responsibilities, and decide, how is this role compensated? Those are some of the most difficult conversations for people in leadership to have. And it's something that can create a lot of frustration for employees,
Yeah.
or can just kind of remain too much of a mystery. And so
Yeah.
more defined process of how that works. And then also moving to a point of where we're going to do a form of pay transparency. Like I said, that was the one that I was probably, a little bit more hesitant to say, hey,
Yeah.
that's always been something you keep it confidential. That's
Right.
not something you talk about. But the reality is people know that is a thing. Different roles get compensated at different amounts. There is the question of how is that decided? Creating our pay brackets and explanation, and then just making it transparent to the employees. Like I said, a little bit concerned of how that was going to come across, but it actually went really well. Adds a lot of clarity for the employees to understand how is it determined how I get compensated? What are the opportunities for me to grow in my position?
Right.
Where does my band currently go? And then what are the opportunities within the company?
Mm-hmm.
Where are those avenues for greater success? And so yeah, I think it's had a lot of benefits, and it was a big project to take on.
Yes, yes. One of the reasons I suggested it for you was because, when a company can have strong pay and compensation guidelines, which starts with a pay philosophy, it meets the needs of the employees. They learn their earning potential, they can clearly see their promotional opportunities, and they see that pay is not determined by who they are, but the role that they're filling. That takes a little bit of the emotion out of it. And so in the work you and I did, we did a lot of research and just a lot of input to see what is exactly required for each role and what are the qualifications. And you're right. I said, while we're doing this, do you want to talk about pay transparency? And it's not Michigan law yet to have pay transparency, but pay transparency is becoming more important in states all around the US. So I commend you for being ahead of the game, just doing the process and actually sharing pay bands with your team, because it did have a positive effect, like you said, pretty much immediately.
It's like I said, those conversations, they're going to happen, and people are going to ask the questions. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you don't have that transparency, just to say, hey, this is how it works, this is how
Mm-hmm.
this role, and again, it's not as if you're saying, hey, here's exactly what your coworker makes, but it's saying this is what these roles make,
The role.
and this is where you fall within this. It helps addressing those questions, bringing clarity to the situation. It just really helps it. And then I think one of the biggest benefits, as I look at my leaders who have reports to them, it really helps them to be able to explain to their employees
Yes.
how this works and give them confidence in those conversations. It's no longer the perception of, well, I just hope Kyle likes you enough to
Yes.
give you that opportunity. And that can always be the perception when you don't
Mm-hmm.
have
For
clarity in
sure.
how this works, right? If you don't have a clear way to explain it, that can be the perception.
I hear you talk about the systems and processes that you've implemented on the people side of the business. I feel like that enables your team not focus on the things that they were wondering about, right? I was wondering about pay. I was wondering how people got hired or how people got promoted. So how has that clarity impacted the culture?
Yeah, so one of our goals this year that you've been helping us with is to have a performance-based culture. I recognize in quite a few areas how often we were focusing on immediate issues or
Mm.
concerns, and not really looking at how do we succeed as a company and how do we perform well in our roles. I mean, one of the things, Mindy, that you suggested, very early on and that we started doing is just having routine one-on-ones. Yeah, if you're constantly distracted on one of these areas that's not very well defined and keep going back to it, it doesn't allow that focus on, hey, how do we do a great job here at Metal Fab?
Mhm.
How does my role affect the bigger picture of the goals that the company has set out? And so we've got some excellent opportunity right now. We really have a great group of people, and there's just some great optimism within where the future of our company is going. And I realize how much it's critical to have people focused on accomplishing those goals and not routinely distracted and using their energy and focus and mind power wondering or
Yeah.
debating over things that aren't directed towards those goals.
For sure. And that alignment will get better results. So, for your team, we started by teaching all the leaders how to set and achieve goals. And then your leadership team created the top company goals. And then tell us what happened from there.
We set some top three goals. We have an advisory board that we work with. It's actually my father and a long-term employee, and so
Hmm.
working with them and some of the objectives for the companies next year. And so we started with those. We set some objectives for sales, and set some specifics of what we were looking to accomplish in this next year, which there's they're pretty big goals for us, but I think they're also realistic goals. And then looking at, some profitability expectations and then creating a performance-based culture and some specific things within those. And so following that, I task each one of our directors. And so the way our company is organized is we have myself as a general manager, and then we have three directors that lead the company in manufacturing, supply chain, and then technical director. And so they took those goals and created their own goals for their team. So they had
Mm.
their entire team come in, talked about those goals, and then made some very specific goals within their department. And the next step of that is you've helped us create a much more detailed annual report or
Mm.
review. They are now going through with their individual employees and cascading those goals down to them to say, how do you particularly in your role, contribute to our department goals, and how do those department goals contribute to the larger company goals? And it's been really powerful. I think there's a lot of people that now can really clearly see why what they're doing every day contributes to the big picture of the company's success.
And there's so much power in that. I can't wait till see this time next year what you've been able to achieve with that goal alignment and just really also understanding how to set really strong goals. So you now have a team of leaders who understand that, who believe in it, and who are cascading the goals down. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. And I'm glad you're already seeing some just excitement from your teams as far as understanding how their work plays into the big picture. It's such an important thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting things that we probably wouldn't have imagined ourselves doing as a small company. So
Right. Yeah.
we had a bit of a reset, and I mean, we recently just acquired another small business and
Mm.
bought out all the assets of a small company and are integrating all of their work into what we're doing. Wouldn't have imagined ourselves being the type of company to be out bringing in this amount of work in such a small amount of time, but I think we've been actually really successful at it so far.
Kyle, you're very involved in the business community in your town as well as in your county. I would love to hear from you. What do you think are just the most common mistakes around the people side of the business that small and medium sized business owners are making?
And so, yeah, I've been involved with many different businesses, and I routinely have conversations with other small businesses that are maybe experiencing some of the same challenges that we face, or maybe they're a starting company, a smaller company that's experiencing something that we've already been through. In the realm of HR, I would say one of the first mistakes is the same that I made in thinking, well, we don't do HR.
Mm.
That's not us. And I've heard other business owners say that, well, we don't do HR at our shop. My response to that, I think the mistake is that yes, you do. The mistake that you're making is that you're trying to do it alone,
Mm.
and you're probably doing it the hard way.
And you're right. As soon as you have an employee, you are hiring and training and developing and having performance expectations and feedback conversations. It all starts in the beginning. So having systems and processes or even guidance somebody you can reach out to is very helpful. It's encouraging to see you and your father reach out to community businesses to help them in so many different ways. But I know they're already leaning on you for your people expertise as well, because they know you have such low turnover and you're doing things well.
I think people realize that we have something special at Metal Fab. We've very rarely ever had trouble attracting new candidates whenever we're looking to hire. Typically, we kind of have a line at the door for that. And so I think there's that question of what are you doing that has made that effective? And I think that's why it's worked so well, just elevating what we were already doing, but just in a more systematic way, working with you. There wasn't a lot of resistance to the changes that you were suggesting. It was actually like, oh, this is really refreshing. Like, this is
Yes.
something that we were trying to find ourselves. I mean, one of the things that I kind of laugh about is our conversations, Mindy, where I say, so I'm experiencing this, or I've noticed this, and I feel like it's a thing. And then you'll say, yes, Kyle, it is a thing. There's a word
Yes.
for it.
There's
And
a
you'll
word for it in HR. Absolutely. But yeah, that happens often for us because you're so intuitive to the people side of the business, and you'll bring something up with me and I'll say, yes, I've seen that before and this is what that is for sure. So how have you personally evolved as a leader now that you've elevated the people side of the business?
One of the things that's really helped just in my confidence as a leader is, if you have a great team, you want to be a good leader for them and you want to serve them well and provide them the opportunities for growth and know that you're bringing the best out of them. And so that's a big task for a leader.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's been really good for me is one, looking at my strengths, looking at where I'm really the most capable. One of the things in the strengths is it shows you some of your downfalls, right? And so, my number one strength is learner. I like to learn everything wherever I can. And I realize how much me trying to learn everything, get involved with everything, trying to help everywhere wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for the company. And I needed to focus more on how to empower the people that I was working with to handle those situations. And then the benefit of me stepping out of all those details is that it allows me to use my strategic perspective to continue thinking about how the company can succeed versus thinking about how do we deal with all of these problems that keep showing up.
It's been so great to watch you be able to lead at a higher level and also to lead through your managers and leaders, right? I think in the beginning, it was a little bit of, let's go ask Kyle everything. You now are so good at empowering your leaders to be that answer for you, for their teams, which is so beneficial for everyone, because it's also going to enable you to, like I said, lead at that high level and to continue to grow the company like you desire to.
I was super busy all day. And I don't know if I actually accomplished anything. I was just busy dealing with all the day-to-day things that happen in business and all the different conversations and all the things that I was doing. And the one thing that I would say that has been a big benefit is that if I were to do that again from before working with you on some of these projects and then doing them now, my day is very different. It's spent much more productively, and I'm thinking out ahead.
It's enabling you to lead at a higher level and zoom out of the everyday, because you've got people in place who can handle the everyday now and have systems that they can follow to ensure that consistency is happening throughout the employee experience.
I mean, that would be one of the biggest things I would emphasize is it's a worthy investment. A company needs a leader that's out looking ahead and not dealing with day to day. Again, I would encourage people to think about writing everything you do down during a day or a week. If they did that and then they shared it with you, Mindy, and said, well, let's see where you're spending all your time.
Yeah, I should add that as part of the audit. It would be a good idea.
Yeah. Let's see how much HR you're already doing.
Right. Like, how much of the people side are you doing? And it doesn't ever go fully away. I'm a business owner too, and I have a team, and I totally get it. And I don't think I would want it to go away, nor would you. But the ability to have the right people in place with the right systems so that they can focus on the day-to-day so that you can use your strengths too. So Kyle, I have a slogan that I use in my business, and it is people first, profits follow. Hearing that, how has that slogan fit into the work you've done at Metal Fab?
I think that it's something that's always been with Metal Fab. What you've brought to the company is matched very well with something that was already important to us. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's really how do we take that idea and then turn it more into something that everybody's involved with, a
Mm-hmm.
culture of how we do things. And then, as we talked about, how do we create some systems and some specific things that we're going to do, practical things that we're going to do that people are going to be involved with? You so often have just very practical first steps to say, hey, we need to put an emphasis on the people, on the leadership, developing that. Your profits will come out of that. Like invest
Mm-hmm.
in your most important resource, your people, and have confidence that they're going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference. And it's not just an abstract saying. There's very practical ways to do it.
And I do want companies to know that they don't have to tackle everything at one time. You and I have been working together for a year now, and we're still working together just as a guide and in taking some of your processes to an even higher level.
Yeah, no, I've really appreciated it. It's been a very eventful year. Well, all the things that we've done, we decided to do everything in a year too,
Yeah,
because we
you
just
did a
kept
lot in
taking
one
on
year
one
for
one
sure.
project, and but we really believed in it. I have a whole group of people that really believe in what we've done, and it's put us in a great position to really start advancing some other major things in our business without some of the obstacles that we had before.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I have enjoyed having you on here, and I'm sure my listeners are encouraged by the work that you've put in and the results that you're seeing. So, thank you again for your time.
Thanks again for having me as a guest. I always enjoy our conversations, and definitely really appreciated working with you. So thanks, Mindy.
I'm passionate about helping businesses of all kinds elevate the people side of their business. So, if anything in this episode interested you and you would like to discuss how I can help your business, please feel free to reach out to me. My information is in the show notes, and you can also contact me on LinkedIn. And remember, when we put people first, profits follow.